and bruchim aba'im to another exciting episode of Sichot HaGeula. My name is Rabbi Yitzchak Shapira, and I'm here joined by my partner in this long ongoing pilpul and hopefully education.
Pilpul is argument, discussion.
But we sincerely hope and pray that this is indeed educational and cause you to think. I'm here with Rabbi Emmanuel Gentilco in Yerushalayim. Thank you, Rabbi, for joining us. How are you doing?
Very good.
Very good, very good. I want to recap for everybody. In the last year, we established an important fact that indeed the Torah that we have today have two components to it. It is one Torah. One of the Torah components, the critical one that we talk is the basis, is the written word of God. That has to be the basis of the foundation, especially when we talk about things like the redemption, the Geula, what are we to do? The Moses have to be in the center of our discussion. And we spoke about the concept of the Torah Shebe'al Peh, or the oral interpretation, that it's really come to bring an understanding of the written Torah rather than to take away from the written Torah anything chas v'chalela. Is that a good assessment, or you want to add anything else?
It's not just it is for us. It would not be even a question of the oral law taking away.
No.
However, there were groups later in our history, like from the time of the Tzaddukim, what would you call them in English?
The Tzaddukim, the
Sadducees also understand that Philo. He translated, not even before that, even the king of Alexandria wanted the Torah translated in Greek, and he only focused on the 5 books. So there were currents, offshoots, that focused only on the 5 books and only believed that the written law, but the main historical Judaism from the time of Moses was to not also make holy the prophets and the writings and the oral tradition that went along with it. So for us, it's, in other words, it's the rabbis, if you look at the commentaries on the Chumash, on the 5 books, on the prophets, on the writings, they're always, when we want to understand the verses, we use the rabbinic mind. They knew the verses and they want to compare, and the Torah is seen as one organic whole. So for us, it's not like, you have you don't have God's word and then you have the rabbis of man, but rather God gave man the understanding to how to interpret and apply God's understanding of the word. So in other words, they go hand in hand.
So how would you explain? I think it's important to, because when we will discuss things and we disagree, I might say so and so say yes, and you might say but so and so said this, and it seems that there is a different perspective. If you were to explain in the simplest way to our audience the principle of Shivim Panim LaTorah, the 70 face of the Torah, it's so important because many people watching us perhaps coming from the position, hey, if I am right, you must be wrong. And that's not the way we view things in Judaism. Actually, we can both be right and we can both be equally wrong.
Right, so I think I could add to your question. It's not merely a question of different ways to look at it. If that's true, then how can anyone be wrong? So the answer is, there is like there's what's within the boundary of understanding, and within that boundary there are different. It's like a diamond. There are different shades and facets, and therefore you could have different opinions. So certainly when it comes to Haggadah, like stories and different traditions, there's different expressions, different views, different ways to view the same thing. When it comes to halacha, right? So halacha means the way that we walk. It doesn't necessarily mean the pristine truth from heaven, but rather there's a famous saying, Torah lo b'shamayim hi. The Torah is not in heaven.
Moshe Rabbeinu said it. She's not over the heaven or not over the sea, b'kir b'chai. It's right here next to you.
So the Talmud uses that expression to show that really what's kovea, what decides the law, is there's a concept of the majority, and we learn that out from verses in the Torah.
Can I ask you a question about this? This is interesting because it's true. The Torah says the majority kind of set the tone, but again, if the Torah is our kind of a standard,
right.
I was thinking about the story of the 12 spies.
And I'm glad you brought that up.
I knew you.
I want to share a story with you.
I knew that. I set you up.
Right,
but
you set me up, but it's okay.
I want it to be also an educational moment for
I think education is important. This is why I think that having, let's say, a debate where you could bring something and I could bring something and then it goes down to the ability of the debater and how well he explains. That's not too educational. But if we could sit and I could honestly tell you what I understand is the Torah perspective, and we can ask each other questions, and for the point of education, there's certain things, certain facts that perhaps we must agree upon if we're going to be true to history, right? So you asked me about the 12 spies and the majority. So now it's very interesting. I want to tell you a story. Many years ago, I was walking on a street not too far from here, Keren Hayasod, and I think there was a bookstore there. I think it was a Christian bookstore. Many years ago. I don't know exactly what happened, but I was asked this interesting question that you're probably thinking in the back of your head, and this would be, and the viewers are probably, and that is, you had 10 spies, right, or 12 spies?
We had 12 spies.
We have 12 people. 2 of them were faithful to God, Yeshua and Ben Nun and Kalev. And the other 10, they scouted Israel, right? And Yeshua and Caleb, they understood from Hashem. Hashem said very clearly, you can go up and conquer it. Hashem will be with you. But they wanted to scout out first. So there's a concept, the way that the man wants to go, Hashem will let him go. And so Hashem said, okay, if you want to scout, I'll let you scout. And they scouted, and they said they were like giants, and they're bigger than us, and they brought a report of terror.
Bad report.
And the truth is, though, that what was bad about it was true what they saw. The problem was they said the word but. And it's because they were so big and so, right, we can't take them. But wait a minute, Hashem's going to be with you. So the question is, how is it that, and this is your question, right, that you only had 2 people, and you had here 10. So who makes the 2 people right? It's a good question. So I was learning at Yeshiva Or Sameach at the time. I went back, asked the rabbi, I looked into it. I forget how I came up with the answer, but I came up with a beautiful answer. And do you know when we go after the majority and when we don't? The only time when we need to go after the majority, that's when we're in safek, when we're in doubt. But if it's very clear that we have Torah's Moshe Rabbeinu, and he's the conduit of Hashem's word and what he wants for the Jewish people at the time. Safek. There's no strike. There's no question over here. So therefore, Caleb and Yeshua, they're following Moshe, which is following Hashem. So therefore, that's the answer to your question.
There is no machloket.
That's right. When we don't know, when we have a question and we don't know what to do, so then we follow the majority to help us decide what to do.
But
is that clear to you?
It's clear. But here's the way I would answer this with a question. There was a great safek. There was great safek in the eye of the Jewish community around. So you say there's no doubt, but clearly...
No doubt in what? No doubt in what God wanted from the Jewish people. That was clear. There was no question of it. What happened was people lost faith in God. And therefore it doesn't matter, that's the whole point. It doesn't matter how many, whether it's 10 versus 2, or 100,000 versus 10. Or that's what I'm saying. Numbers do not tell us truth.
So let me.
And I think that's why.
That's interesting. Numbers do not tell us truth. That's very interesting.
And there's 300,000. There's actually 500,000 Messianic Jews.
I am.
And there's 50,000 people that believe that we came from Martians. Okay. Right? And maybe there's less. So
you're saying majority is right only in the safek.
That's the principle.
Safek is doubt.
Right.
That's the principle.
That's the principle.
So I'm taking it now.
He's smiling. He thinks it's a good question. A good question.
I am applying it a little bit. Let's move forward.
Yeah.
Was there a safek in the time of Yeshua about his messiahship?
Absolutely not.
There was no safek.
No. If you look at the history there.
Yeah.
Right. First of all, you basically had fishermen and common people following there's no indication that Yeshua learned it in the yeshivas. They have a statement.
Whoa.
There's a statement about Paul learned from Rabbi Gamliel that we have.
Wait, you're saying there's no indication, but it says that he went to the synagogue even as a boy, and he have this pool inside the synagogue.
Okay.
And the fact that he's reading inside the synagogue.
So let me explain.
Telling us that he was Baal Kriya.
Okay, so I'll address that. So first of all, any common person, right, has the right and privilege to go to the Beit Knesset, the synagogue of the time. And the fact that he was reading a scroll doesn't make him a scholar.
There's no. You have to be called up. You cannot just go up and say, "Hey, I want to read."
Right, but that
he was honored.
One second. The criteria to be called up is the ability to read. So if he had the ability to read, was he versed? Was he? And he did have exposure to the oral tradition. He tells the people, right, to follow the Pharisees. So obviously he had some exposure, but there's no record of him having a serious dialogue amongst our accepted Tanoim at that time, right? You don't have that, And what I see when I look at the Gospels,
we'll have to look at
I see what we call an apologetic book that wants to show that their leader is the Messiah, and they try to bring genealogies, but let me finish. Only some of them, they're contradictory, and they try to make him appear as the master. Wait, this is very important. The master, opposed to the Pharisees who didn't know better. I'll give you an example. They're looking at each other. Can you heal on Shabbat? As if the Pharisees would not allow it, and he would allow it.
That was a machloket in Judaism in this time, whether or not you can heal.
So let me explain. Again, let me explain. There's no question.
You're saying, wait.
Let me finish, and then you can respond.
Okay.
All right? I'll be happy to.
You go first.
Right?
You go first.
That there's no question one is allowed, even back then, to heal in Shabbat if you were able to do some sort of spiritual ability and to heal someone, not a problem. The problem was, can you do a malacha in order to heal someone on Shabbat?
That's not the question in the Brit HaChadashah. The question in the Brit HaChadashah, can you heal on the Shabbat? In the Brit HaChadashah, they're asking,
all I know is the way the Pharisees are being portrayed as if they look at each other, they don't know the answers. But if you would look at the Talmidei Chachamim, the masters, the Tanoim at the time, then you could see so clear that this is like a made-up apologetic work, and it does not reflect the rabbinic Jewish understanding of the time.
Okay, let me tell you why this.
Do you hear that?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying loudly.
But maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves.
We're getting ahead of ourselves,
right.
But I will say one more just as a response briefly. Even when we read about Pikuach Nefesh later on, that the Talmud, when the Talmud speaks about Pikuach Nefesh, it's later. It's later than Yeshua time. So when you say there's no doubt about it, by the way, I agree
Hold on. Whoa. Maybe the Talmud was written later, but you have the Mishnah, and you have these discussions you should know. Hillel, the famous Hillel was before Yeshua.
Yes.
Right?
And
Shammai.
So
you're telling me the Jews did not know what to do when it comes to the laws of Pekuach Nefesh? By the way,
the law of
someone's life is at stake. Can you break the Shabbat to save him? You didn't think that wasn't known in the time of the prophets?
No, I am saying to you, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. I am saying there's been a machloket. First of all, let me give you an example. What is it an issue of truly pikuach nefesh? Or is it issue of healing somebody who maybe not in a life? If he's healing somebody, it doesn't have to be a pikuach nefesh.
Well, if you want me to answer your question, so I'll tell you my understanding when it comes to Shabbat and Yeshua.
Yeah, we'll get there. I promise you we will get there. But we got to get back to the structure we are building. I will say I respectfully disagree on various points of what you say, but we leave it at that and we continue because you quoted something. I just want to make sure and ask you this question because we're setting a baseline here. We spoke about Matthew 23 where Yeshua speaks about the seat of Moses. And it is interesting, in the city of Chorazin, and I want to bring this point, because I just went there, in the city of Chorazin, a place that Yeshua specifically spoke about in Matthew 11, he rebuked the city of Chorazin. There is a synagogue from the first century where we see the seat of Moses. Now, when Yeshua is speaking about the seat of Moses, he said, Al kisem yoshvim, he's saying, who sat on the seat of Moses? It's somebody who is in a position of authority, a posek, who is a dayan, somebody who pays was come and say, hey, I stole from you 2 sheep and I took with you 1 cow, and then who is stole from you? There is somebody in a religious authority to make decisions on issue of halakha of this time. So Yeshua actually here validating the authority of those who sit on the seat of Moshe, with one exception. He said the authority is theirs. It doesn't mean there's not can abuse authority. You know, you can have authority, but it doesn't mean
right. So if they were acting properly, representing their tradition, right, and therefore they are in the sitting in the chair of deciding, you need to listen to them. So this is something that Yeshua did not invent. This was something that was accepted and understood.
The Torah says it. The Torah says it.
And the Jewish people and the Pharisees followed that.
Okay, very good. So we don't have an issue with this particular, you don't have an issue with this particular statement by Yeshua, correct?
Look, I understand that the New Testament...
No, but don't look at it through the eyes of a New Testament.
Well, whatever. I mean, we only know Yeshua through the 5,000 documents that were gone through, and ended up being in the Council of Nicaea decided what the New Testament is. What actually this person Yeshua said and did, we're not 100% sure.
Well,
we only know the writings.
We have that is not true.
Yeah.
That is not true.
You were there?
No. But history telling us, archaeology
tells us that.
History shows us Messianic Jews living inside villages with other Jews, praying in the same synagogue.
So let's get back to that. You said he was called to the Torah, so that's a good point. In other words, the very early believers in Yeshua, right? They were part of the Jewish community, and they differed on the Messiah. But if they were halachic Jews, and they did not cross red lines. So then they were accepted.
I'll give you
wait. What would be the 2 red lines? One would be if they started, looking at this Messiah figure more than man or divine. For us, and we could discuss that. I'm sure we'll disagree, but that was definitely a red line. The other red line is to accepting non-Jews into the fold of the movement. But those are 2 red lines, and then once those red lines, then there was a dividing of the ways.
But Rabbi, from history, I'm just looking now at historical evidence. I'll give you 2 examples. One from Yerushalmi, and I'll give you examples from Josephus as well. In Yerushalmi, we see a discussion, and again, Yerushalmi is important because he speaks about what's happened here in the land. And in Yerushalmi, it speaks about what happened if Amin, Amin can come and become a chazan in the synagogue. There is a discussion about it. The reason it's in Yerushalmi, they wouldn't put it in a Yerushalmi if this would not have been a possibility that Amin can come and pray with a Jew in the synagogue. I contend to this, and history contend to that, and this is very important for our conversation. Like we said, the Torah is a foundation. We must look at the words of Yeshua not through the lens of 2,000 years of Christianity, because if we look at these words through 2,000 years lens of Christianity, we're not going to get anywhere. We all understand.
But if you look at quote unquote Judaism through what you would call the New Covenant, that already is outside. That's already the red line. But you mentioned the min. So there's 2 Gemaras. I think Talmud we have to explain the discussions between the rabbis and the min. You're right. This was the min. The min. See, what happened was, I believe the most earliest followers in the earliest of years, they were not considered a min. But once they started to believe things that were outside the Jewish thought at the time, then they're considered a min. And I could cite you, I believe it's in Hedron 38b. There's a discussion between a min and Rav Edis. Now I have to tell you something. This is very important. that there's a discussion there should. It quotes Pirkei Avot in the Gemara, and it says one should know how to answer an epicurus, right? Now it's said, however, it's talking about a non-Jewish epicurus, an avodah zorah. But he said, but then you can answer. But a Jewish epicurus is what it says. You cannot answer. Do you know why? Because this is someone who learned, who's rejected what he's learned. So if you're going to argue with him, it's only going to give more fuel to his fire to go against. However, so then it goes on to the story about Rav Edis, that a certain min went up to him. The min, by the way, is a heretic, right? And he quoted, I believe, Exodus 24, where it says that he said to Moses to go up to Hashem. And the question is, who is the he? It seems like another God. So this is what the min said to Rav Edis. He said, well, that actually is the angel Meta, and I'll say the rest of the word Tron. We don't say it together, we say Matat. So he says, oh, well, he was telling Moshe to go up to Hashem. He's like Hashem. Maybe we should worship him like the other statements in the Torah where we worship God. And Rav Edis responded, he says, no. If you look at the verse over there, the Gemara quotes, it talks about God will be with the Jewish people, but not directly, it's through an angel. And he says, my name will be in this angel. So this angel is Matat, and Rashi explains that the gematria of Shekai, Shin Daled Yud, is the same as Matat. So God's name will be in this angel, but it says you should listen to him. Right. And it says not only that he won't be able to forgive your sins. So this is so if he's secondary, he's just an angel. But I'm going to explain that he's more than an angel. But the point. No, Rabbi. Wait a minute. The point is, I'm almost finished. The point is, the Rav Edis says, wait, if he's a secondary person, then we don't need him we don't really need him. You don't. Of course, you wouldn't worship him if he can't forgive sins. He doesn't have the power of God. He says that's exactly right, and that's why the Jewish people didn't only wanted Hashem, didn't want any other secondary vehicle. So that's an example of a discussion with a min.
But we have other discussions with a min where clearly we see in the Yerushalmi where people heal in the name of Yeshua, and the rabbis admit that healing works in the name of Yeshua. Well, that's
getting back to the verse in Deuteronomy that a person can show miracles, but he has to say the word of God. Our religion is not based upon miracles.
We see Rabbi faith. Where was it, Matt, when we were in Sachin with Rabbi
Yeshua of Sachin.
Yeah, Rabbi Yeshua Sachin. We see but it was the grave of the Yaakov Amin, right? So we see the same story there where Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer right there, he learned Var Torah from the Min, and then he goes before the court, and he said, oh no, I learned from the Min. Well, he learned Torah from the Min. How can you learn Torah? Because the Min knew Torah.
So what is your point? Because this is a very important point.
This is a very important point. Look, archaeology, I'm basing it...
What are you trying to show? That the Messianic Jews lived in the time of Yeshua? Fine.
No.
There are a few hundred, maybe even a few thousand.
No.
That's but the bottom line, the Judaism rejected them, and eventually, within 200-300 years, the church rejected them. And Rabbi Gamliel said, that about the Messianic Jews, we're not going to make them a problem. If they're true, they'll continue, and if not, they'll fail. And they failed several centuries ago.
My point, actually,
what's your point?
Is about Safek. So let me actually say what you say. I disagree with. For example, I quote one historian, Rivka Nir. She says that out of the...
Wait, you're trying to show that what? No. I said that we use the principle majority when we have a doubt. Now you're bringing me a proof from the story about men in the time of the first century. Somehow that conflicts. How is that conflict?
No,
I don't understand.
Rabbi, let me get my point across.
Yes.
Okay. Rivka Nir says that 30,000 out of the 150,000 Amaretz in Jerusalem during the time of Yeshua follow him as the Messiah. This is 1 out of 5. That's a significant number. We see graves
I don't know who this woman is. I don't know where she gets her information from.
Okay. Just 1 second. Let me continue. Let me develop it for 1 minute, because this is we're running out of time for this
Please
episode.
Go, yes.
So the other thing is we see graves in the Galilee of Jewish. They're Jews. They buried halachically as Jews, but they left symbols to prove their identity as follower Yeshua. They have the Borat Samor, they have the niches, the Jewish, the pits for the bones. They buried according to the halacha as Jews. The point that I am telling you is the evidence is great. That there was
I saw your YouTube. It was rather funny. It was very. It actually was amusing to me.
Huge Jewish community here that follow him as Messiah, live as Jews among the rest of the Jews, pray as Jews, and that's something that is irrefutable.
Again, there's no.
So there is no safek, and that's why I'm saying
what are you talking about?
There is no.
The fact that there are Jews, the early Hebrew Christians existed. So what?
Because you're saying, well, Judaism rejects.
I said that there's no historical dialogue between Yeshua and the known Tanoim at the time. That's all I said.
Well, but
which is true, which is a fact. The fact that there were people that followed him that were Messianic, but
there were people in the Sanhedrin that followed him. One of them named Nicodemus, he's followed him.
Nicodemus, you call him?
Yes, he followed him. He was a member of the Sanhedrin. That's not a.
But again, we're for the audience sake of clarity, what does this have anything to do with? You're challenging me the issue of doubt.
Right. Here is.
Let me ask you, do you agree that the Messianics were certainly a large minority? You want to say there are thousands, many thousands, but the bottom line is compared to there were millions of Jews. But the truth, no, you're right. It wasn't that high. But there was many times over.
Look.
The Jews that did not believe in Yeshua.
But there were tens of thousands.
In fact, I'm going to tell you
did
something.
believe.
There's a book. If you look at Josephus in a book by called Rav Patai called the Messiah Text. He's a scholar. He's not. I don't know if he's Orthodox, but he brings an interesting point that back then there was a much more famous person who also died on the cross named Thedus. And he has a much bigger following. And the only reason why Christianity had a greater following is because it adopted the non-Jews.
Rabbi,
non-Jews.
You missed my point altogether.
So get to the point succinctly.
Very succinctly.
Yes.
The point that I'm making, the law about the majority in a safek does not apply in the case of Yeshua. We read, for example, the words, how many tens of thousands believed.
First of all.
And they're all zealots to the law. That's the point I'm making. You're not talking about a little tiny minority group here that say all those Messianics, they're this time. You're talking about major group of people who are all following Yeshua as the Messiah. It's not a suffix from that perspective.
Well, you're saying because there was a certain amount of Jews that followed Jesus, therefore there must be some truth behind it. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying we cannot apply the law of majority.
Well, first of all, I'll tell you why.
That's all what I'm saying.
But I'm going to agree with you for a wholly different reason. Right? You're completely off base because when we talk about following the majority, we're talking about what is the ratzon, what is the desire of Hashem
and that's exactly
to
what
do
we're talking
His
about.
will in halacha. Right? So should we go to Eretz Yisrael? What is the halacha? What is the right? So therefore, when we're in question, right, we have a means.
Why the majority?
Can I tell you something? Can I tell you something? Yeshua himself is on my side against you on this because he said to follow the Pharisees. This is a law that was taught from the Pharisees.
But I am telling you that's why I'm telling you that even so you're saying that basically there's a loop catch 22. He said to follow the Pharisee, but he also said follow me. Therefore, what I'm telling you, there is not a suffix here because thousands.
You're saying something interesting. You're saying since Yeshua was clearly the minority, but he says he has still strength of authority, even though he's a minority. Like you want to say he's comparable to Yeshua and Caleb when they're despised. But the thing is
that's exactly what I'm saying.
That's a very apologetic statement.
Wow, today's episode was an interesting episode. We will continue this important discussion because we establish a standard, and one of the standards I have to do, how do we as Jews, according to the eyes of Torah, how do we make decision on the will of God? So the question we have to ask ourselves, whether or not there was a safek, a doubt, during the time of Yeshua, that he is the Mashiach. Can we apply this rule, as Rabbi Emmanuel says, to the time of for the sugya of Messiah, Yeshua, or not? I leave it to you. We will continue at next episode. I hope you enjoyed and blessed by this. God bless you. See you next week. Litraot.